At 23, Emily Carter still lived in her childhood home while finishing her college degree. It wasn't ideal, but it was practical. She paid her mother, Linda, rent every month without fail. She bought her own groceries, washed her own clothes, and kept her bedroom spotless. Emily worked part-time at a pharmacy and attended classes during the day, following a predictable routine that kept her exhausted but stable. Her father, Mark, traveled constantly for work, which meant the house was quiet during the week, just Emily and Linda sharing the same space but rarely the same peace. For a long time things felt manageable. Linda could be controlling, but Emily told herself that was just how her mother was. She kept her head down, saved money, and focused on graduating. Emily believed that as long as she stayed respectful and independent, there would be no major problems. She didn't realize that Linda had already started crossing lines quietly, subtly testing how much control she could take without being challenged. The first signs were easy to dismiss. Emily would come home from work and notice her desk rearranged or her closet reorganized. At first she thought nothing of it. When she asked Linda why she'd been in her room, Linda smiled and said, "I was just helping. You work so hard." Emily thanked her, even though it made her uncomfortable. Then small things started going missing. A phone charger. A favorite pen. Hair ties she swore she'd left on her dresser. She'd eventually find them in the kitchen drawer or on Linda's nightstand. When Emily mentioned it, Linda laughed. "You forget things all the time," she said lightly. "Don't blame me." Emily tried to trust her, but something felt off. She asked Linda politely to stop going into her room when she wasn't home. Linda's smile tightened. "This is my house," she replied. "I can go wherever I want." Emily swallowed her frustration and let it go, not realizing that this was only the beginning. Everything changed the afternoon Emily came home early from class. She dropped her bag in the hallway and walked toward her bedroom, only to stop short. There was a padlock on her door. Not inside, outside. She stared at it in disbelief, touching the cold metal like it might disappear. Emily called her mother immediately. "Why is my door locked?" she asked, her voice shaking. Linda sounded calm, almost cheerful. "I'm at the store," she said. "I locked it while I was cleaning. I didn't want anything damaged." Emily sat on the hallway floor for an hour waiting. When Linda returned, she unlocked the door like it was no big deal. Emily told her firmly, "You can't do this. I pay rent. This is my room." Linda shrugged. "It's my house. I decide what's secure." That night, Emily barely slept. The lock stayed. And the next day it was locked again. The locking became routine and cruel. If Emily stayed out too late, the door was locked. If she didn't answer a text fast enough, locked. If she refused to watch TV with Linda, locked. Some nights, Emily came home from 8-hour shifts and had to wait while Linda finished her show before unlocking the door. Other nights, Linda refused entirely. "You can sleep on the couch," she'd say from the stairs. "Maybe you'll learn some respect." Emily told her father when he came home for a weekend. Mark looked at the lock, frowned, and asked Linda what was going on. Linda said Emily was irresponsible and brought strangers into the house. It wasn't true, but Mark believed her. "Try harder," he told Emily before leaving again. Her brother Ryan said she was overreacting. Her aunt said she should be grateful. Emily felt invisible. Nobody thought it was strange that her mother was locking her out of the room she paid for. The breaking point came when Linda locked Emily out for 2 full days because she forgot to pick up a prescription. Emily slept on the couch, kept her work clothes in her car, and listened as Linda watched from the stairs. "You earn your privileges," Linda said coldly. That night, something inside Emily shifted. She wasn't just hurt anymore, she was done. She realized this wasn't about safety or cleaning or respect. It was about control. And Linda had never expected Emily to fight back. As Emily lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling, she made a quiet decision. If her mother wanted to teach lessons through locks, Emily would show her exactly what that felt like. Not with screaming. Not with threats. But with the same calm, calculated rules Linda had used against her. The game Linda started was about to change. Emily didn't act right away. For 2 days after sleeping on the couch, she observed her mother closely. Linda moved through the house like a warden, checking doors, commenting on Emily's schedule, asking where she'd been and why she was late. Every question felt less like concern and more like surveillance. Emily answered calmly, keeping her voice neutral, even as her chest tightened with anger. That calm wasn't submission, it was preparation. Emily realized something important. Linda believed control only worked in one direction. She never imagined her daughter could mirror it back. Emily waited until Friday night when Linda left for her weekly book club. As soon as her mother's car disappeared down the street, Emily stood up from the couch and walked into the garage. Her hands shook as she opened the toolbox, not from fear, but from the weight of what she was about to do. Emily started with the bathroom. She installed a simple lock on the inside of the main bathroom door, nothing fancy, just enough to block access. The next morning Linda discovered it. "Emily," she yelled from the hallway, rattling the handle. Emily answered from her room, voice calm. "I'm protecting the bathroom supplies," she said evenly. "I don't want anything damaged." There was a stunned silence. Then screaming. Linda had to use the half bath in the basement, the one she always complained about. When Emily got home later, she unlocked the door for exactly 5 minutes, then locked it again. "Just like you do," Emily said when Linda demanded answers. Linda stared at her, shocked, not angry yet, just confused. This wasn't how things were supposed to work. That night, Emily took the next step. While Linda slept, Emily threaded a bike lock through every kitchen cabinet handle. The next morning, Linda stood frozen in the kitchen, unable to reach dishes, pans, or food. "What did you do?" she demanded. Emily poured herself cereal into a bowl she'd kept in her room. "I secured our valuables," she said simply. Linda called Mark, furious, but when he asked Emily what was happening, she repeated Linda's own words. "It's just a small inconvenience." Mark sighed and told Linda to work it out. That was when Emily knew she'd finally broken the illusion. The rules only mattered when Linda made them. Now they applied to her too, and she hated it. The real move came that weekend. Linda left town for her sister's birthday and gave Emily a long list of chores. Emily didn't touch the list. Instead, she replaced every lock in the house: front door, back door, pantry, bathroom, even the thermostat cabinet. She left only one door unchanged: her bedroom. By Sunday evening, Emily sat on the couch, staring at her phone, heart pounding. She felt powerful and terrified. Every lock represented months of humiliation, of waiting in hallways, of begging for access to her own space. She rehearsed what she'd say when Linda came home. Not angry. Not emotional. Calm. Controlled. Exactly like Linda had always been. Headlights swept across the living room walls. Emily froze as Linda's car pulled into the driveway. She watched through the window as her mother tried her key. It wouldn't turn. Linda frowned, tried again, harder. Then panic flickered across her face as understanding hit. She looked up and locked eyes with Emily through the glass. Rage followed instantly. Linda pounded on the door, screaming. Emily took a breath, unlocked it, and stood in the doorway without moving. "What did you do?" Linda shouted. Emily met her gaze steadily. "I protected the house," she said. "Just like you taught me." And for the first time, Linda realized she had lost control. Linda's face twisted from shock into pure fury. "You think this is funny?" she screamed, trying to shove past Emily into the house. Emily didn't move. She planted her feet and said calmly, "You can come in when you learn some respect." The words hit Linda like a slap because they were her own. Her face turned red as she started yelling about calling the police, about how this was her house and Emily had no right to lock her out. Emily stayed still, her voice steady. "I'm not keeping you out forever," she said. "I just want you to understand how it feels." Linda lunged again, harder this time, forcing Emily to brace herself against the doorframe. Neighbors' lights flicked on down the street as the shouting grew louder. Linda pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling your father," she snapped. She paced the driveway while talking, her voice rising with every word. "She's lost her mind," Linda cried. "She attacked me. I don't feel safe." Emily listened from inside, arms crossed, heart racing but expression calm. When Linda finished the call, Emily stepped aside and gestured toward the doorway. "You can come in," she said. Suspicion flashed across Linda's face, but she pushed past Emily anyway, shoulder-checking her as she stormed inside. Emily closed the door and locked it behind her. Linda ran for the bathroom first, only to yank uselessly on the handle. Then the kitchen. Then the pantry. Each locked door pushed her closer to hysteria. Linda came charging back into the living room, tears streaking her face. "Give me the keys," she demanded. Emily sat down slowly on the couch and took out her key ring, letting it jingle softly. "I'll give you bathroom access for 5 minutes," she said evenly. "If you ask nicely." Linda stared at her like she was seeing a stranger. Then she lunged. The fight was sudden and messy. Linda clawed at Emily's arms, trying to pry the keys from her fist. Emily shouted and shoved her away, but Linda came back harder, nails digging into skin. They tumbled onto the floor, furniture scraping loudly. Emily felt sharp pain as Linda's nails tore down her forearm. Blood started running. Emily screamed and shoved Linda back, sending her into the coffee table. They froze. Emily looked down at her arm, shocked at the long bleeding scratches. Linda stared too, breathing hard. Something shifted in her expression, not regret exactly, but fear. Emily grabbed tissues and pressed them to the wounds, watching red soak through almost immediately. Linda backed away and started crying, not yelling now, but panicked sobbing. She picked up her phone again and called Mark, her voice shaking. "You need to come home," she cried. "Now." Emily stayed silent, sitting on the floor, holding pressure to her arm. After the call ended, Linda looked at Emily expectantly, as if waiting for sympathy. Emily said nothing. A loud knock echoed through the house. "It's the police," a man's voice called from outside. A neighbor had reported screaming. Linda rushed to open the door, immediately breaking down in tears and accusing Emily of locking her out and attacking her. The officer stepped inside and noticed the blood on Emily's arm. "Are you okay?" he asked. Emily calmly explained everything: paying rent, the months of being locked out, the padlock. She showed the scratches without dramatics. The officer sighed heavily. "This is a civil matter," he said. He told Linda she couldn't lock out a paying tenant. He told Emily she couldn't change locks without permission. "If we come back tonight," he warned, "someone's going to jail." Then he left. The house fell silent. Upstairs, Linda locked herself in her bedroom. Downstairs, Emily sat alone, bandaging her arm, knowing nothing in this house would ever be the same again. Emily stayed on the couch that night even though her bedroom was unlocked. Her arm throbbed under the bandage and every sound in the house made her tense. Upstairs, Linda's door stayed shut. Emily could hear muffled crying and angry phone conversations drifting through the floor. The silence between them felt heavier than the shouting had. Emily kept replaying the fight in her head: Linda lunging, the sharp pain, the blood. She didn't feel victorious. She felt exhausted. She checked her phone and saw 3 missed calls from her father, Mark. She didn't return them. Not yet. She needed space to breathe, to think, to prepare for what came next. Deep down, she knew this confrontation wasn't over. It had only forced everything into the open. Morning came with loud pounding on the front door. Emily jolted awake on the couch, heart racing. When she opened it, Mark stood there, wrinkled suit, red eyes, suitcase in hand. He stepped inside without a word. Linda appeared on the stairs in her robe, face swollen from crying. She immediately started talking fast, emotional, blaming Emily for everything. "She went crazy," Linda said. "She changed all the locks. She attacked me." Mark's jaw tightened as he turned toward Emily. He waited, arms crossed. Emily didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She pulled out her phone and handed it to him. "Just look," she said quietly. Mark scrolled in silence. Photo after photo of the padlock on Emily's door. Different days. Different timestamps. Screenshots of messages saying, "You'll get your room back when you learn respect." Notes Emily had typed documenting each incident. His face drained of color. Linda watched from the stairs, panic creeping in as she realized what he was seeing. "That's not the whole story," she interrupted. "She's exaggerating." Mark raised a hand without looking at her. He kept scrolling. Minutes passed. Finally, he sat down heavily on the couch. "I didn't know," he said softly. Emily felt something crack open in her chest, not relief, not triumph, just sadness that it took proof for anyone to believe her. The conversation that followed lasted hours. Linda insisted she had every right to control her house. Emily argued she paid rent and had tenant rights. Mark tried to mediate, but there was no middle ground. Linda refused to admit she was wrong. Eventually, Mark said, "Maybe it's best if Emily moves out." The words stung, but Emily realized he wasn't choosing sides, he was avoiding blame. Linda immediately offered to waive rent if Emily left quickly. That hurt the most. Emily asked for 6 weeks. Mark agreed. Linda protested until Mark said she could stay with her sister if she couldn't behave. That ended the argument. The rules were set. 6 weeks. No locks. No retaliation. The house turned cold after that. Linda avoided Emily completely, locking herself in her bedroom. Emily moved quietly, packing a little each night. Her brother Ryan called one afternoon, his tone different this time. "Dad told me everything," he said. "I'm sorry. I should have believed you." Then he offered to lend her money for the move. Emily nearly cried. At work, a coworker mentioned a friend looking for a roommate. Emily followed that lead, met Catherine, and found a small, clean apartment near campus. It wasn't fancy, but it felt safe. When Emily handed over the deposit, her hands shook, not with fear but relief. He was really leaving. Telling Linda was harder than signing the lease. Linda sat on Emily's bed and cried, saying she never thought Emily would actually go. Emily listened but didn't back down. 2 days later, Mark took Emily to dinner alone. He apologized for enabling Linda for not paying attention. He gave Emily cash for moving expenses. Emily accepted it even though it felt complicated. The apologies didn't erase the damage, but they mattered. Back at home, Linda switched tactics, being overly kind, cooking favorite meals, buying gifts. Emily recognized it for what it was and stayed firm. Packing continued. Moving day arrived quietly. Ryan helped load boxes while Linda stayed locked in her room. Mark watched from the doorway, saying little. Emily hugged him goodbye and climbed into the truck. The apartment stairs were steep, the rooms small, but the door lock was simple and hers alone. Catherine helped set up the bed and they ordered pizza. That night, Emily locked her door, not out of fear but choice. She slept deeply for the first time in months. Life began to change quickly. Emily's grades improved. Her anxiety faded. She took longer showers without fear. She stopped jumping at sounds. At work, her manager noticed her focus and later offered her a full-time position after graduation. Emily accepted without hesitation. Stability felt unreal but welcome. She could finally plan beyond survival. Linda started therapy. Mark called to tell Emily, hopeful but cautious. Emily listened, supportive but unmoved. Therapy didn't undo months of harm. She agreed to meet Linda in public places, set time limits, and leave when boundaries were pushed. Slowly, painfully, a new kind of relationship formed, distant, controlled, safer. 6 months later, Emily stood in her apartment folding laundry, calm and grounded. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She had her own keys, her own space, and the freedom to come and go without punishment. The padlock on her childhood bedroom felt like something from another lifetime. Emily closed her closet door, turned the simple lock she controlled, and breathed in peace she had earned the hard way. Graduation day arrived faster than Emily expected. She stood backstage in her cap and gown, smoothing the fabric with nervous hands. The auditorium buzzed with families talking and laughing, but Emily felt strangely calm. For the first time in years, she wasn't worried about what waited for her at home afterward. When her name was called, she walked across the stage and accepted her diploma, her heart pounding not with fear but pride. She scanned the crowd and spotted Mark, Ryan, and Linda standing together. They were clapping, smiling. Linda's smile looked careful, almost fragile. Emily smiled back politely, keeping her emotions in check. This moment belonged to her. After the ceremony, they met outside for photos. Linda hugged Emily a little too tightly but didn't say anything controlling or critical. "I'm proud of you," she said, voice thick with emotion. At dinner, Linda behaved like a normal parent, asking about Emily's job, listening without interrupting. When dessert arrived, Linda slid a card across the table. Inside was cash and a short note apologizing for making Emily's last year at home so hard. Emily thanked her but didn't promise forgiveness. Progress didn't require forgetting. 2 weeks later, Emily's pharmacy manager officially offered her a full-time position. The salary was enough to breathe. Emily signed the paperwork with a steady hand, feeling something solid lock into place inside her. She texted Ryan the news and he responded instantly with congratulations. That night, Emily sat on her bed in her apartment, listening to the quiet hum of the building, and realized she wasn't waiting for anyone to interrupt her peace. No footsteps. No locks. No fear. Emily met her parents once a month at restaurants, always public, always on her terms. Linda sometimes slipped, asking too many questions or offering unwanted advice, but Emily shut it down calmly. When Linda respected the boundary, Emily stayed. When she didn't, Emily left. Mark supported this without argument. Slowly, Linda learned that access to Emily's life was no longer automatic, it was earned. One evening, Emily stood in her apartment doorway, keys in hand, watching the sun dip below the buildings. She thought about the girl who once slept on a couch because someone else controlled her space. That girl felt distant now. Emily locked her door not to keep danger out but to protect her peace. She turned off the light, smiling softly, knowing this life, quiet, independent and free, was finally her own. As the months passed, Emily noticed changes that felt small but mattered deeply. She slept through the night without waking in panic. She stopped flinching at sudden noises. When she came home from work, she didn't pause at the door to prepare herself emotionally. Home was no longer a battlefield, it was a place to rest. Living with Catherine showed her what normal looked like. They talked through problems instead of punishing each other. They respected privacy without suspicion. One night while washing dishes together, Catherine said gently, "You know, what your mom did wasn't just strict parenting. That was control." The word settled heavily in Emily's chest. She hadn't wanted to call it that before, but hearing it out loud helped something finally click into place. Emily began to understand that love didn't require suffering. That family didn't get unlimited access just because they shared blood. Therapy wasn't something she needed to fix herself, it was something her mother needed to confront her own fear of losing control. Emily didn't celebrate that realization. It was sad. It meant accepting that her childhood home would never feel safe in the way she once hoped it could. But it also meant freedom. Emily could feel compassion for her mother without sacrificing herself. Those two things could exist at the same time. Her relationship with her family settled into something cautious but functional. Monthly dinners stayed public. Phone calls stayed brief. When Linda respected boundaries, Emily stayed engaged. When she pushed, Emily pulled back. There were no dramatic confrontations anymore, just quiet consequences. Mark became more present, traveling less, speaking up more. Ryan checked in often, their bond stronger now that he finally understood. The family wasn't healed, but it was no longer bleeding. One night, nearly a year after moving out, Emily stood alone in her bedroom folding laundry. The room was small, simple, and hers. She ran her fingers over the lock on the door not because she needed to use it but because she could. She remembered sitting in a hallway begging for access to a space she paid for. She remembered sleeping on a couch while being watched. Those memories no longer controlled her. They had become reminders of how far she'd come. Emily turned off the light and lay down, feeling calm in a way that once felt impossible. Her life wasn't perfect. Her family was still complicated. But she had something she never truly had before: control over her own space, her own choices, her own future. No one could lock her out of her life anymore. She had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting back, it's walking away and building something better. Moral lesson. Control disguised as love is still control. Setting boundaries even with family is not cruelty. It's survival. Choosing peace over permission is sometimes the bravest thing a person can do.